Hello and welcome back. We are continuing on to chapter 5 of Nancy Drew's number 1, The Secret of the Old Clock. Chapter 5, A Conference. Although the rain was no longer falling, the river road was a sea of mud, and before Nancy Drew started for home, the Horner girls insisted on helping her put chains on the rear wheels of the roadster. "You'll never make it to the gravel unless you do," Grace advised her. "The river road is terribly slippery in wet weather. You're sure you want to attempt it? We'd love to have you stay with us until tomorrow." "Oh, I'll have only 2 miles to go before I strike gravel," Nancy returned. "I'll make it all right. But before I go, I do wish you would let me pay for all the trouble I have caused you." "We couldn't think of accepting money," Grace said quietly. "It's been fun having you here," Allie added. At last, after thanking the Horner sisters for their hospitality, Nancy told them goodbye. Allie and Grace watched her until she had backed the roadster from the barn and was safely on the road. "You're taking a big chance in this mud," called out Allie after her. "If you have any trouble, come back here," Grace added. "That is, if you can get back. Don't skid into a tree or into a ditch. That would be worse." "What are you trying to do, make me nervous?" demanded Nancy, but with a smile on her face. "No, we only want to see you get home safely," answered Grace. And by that time the car was so far on its way no more could be said. Once on her way, Nancy had little trouble, for she was a skillful driver. The mud was heavy, but although the roadster slipped about, she managed to keep it in the road. Nevertheless, she was relieved when at last she reached the main gravelled highway. "I'll stop at Father's office," she decided as she drove into River Heights. "I want to tell him about my adventure right away." She parked the car and surveyed it rather ruefully as she climbed out. "Poor thing needs a bath. But even if I did get into mud, it was worth it. Otherwise, I would never have found out about the Horner girls." As Nancy was admitted to her father's private office, he arose from his chair to greet her. "I'm glad you're here safe and sound," he declared in relief. "I've been worried ever since that storm came up. I telephoned the house, and Hannah said you weren't back. It gave me a bad scare." "I had a little adventure," Nancy announced with an important air. Quickly she told of her meeting with the Horner sisters and what she had learned concerning the Crowley will. "Allie and Grace Horner are as poor as church mice, but they're proud too," Nancy ended. "If only we could do something to help them. They deserve a portion of the Crowley estate, but they'll never get it unless someone takes a hand." "From what you say, it looks as though Crowley really did make a will in their favor," Carson Drew commented thoughtfully. "I never had any particular liking for Richard Thompson, and I'll admit it would please me to see him lose the money. I'll be glad to do anything I can to help the Horner girls, Nancy. We might invite them to the house for a little conference." "I was hoping you would suggest that. You see, the girls have no idea what became of the will. They never saw it. Well, it is possible that by talking with them we may learn something which may serve as a clue." "I'll invite them to the house tomorrow if you want me to," Nancy said quickly. "You're so clever at asking questions, and the Horner girls will do anything in their power to help." Mr. Drew studied his desk calendar for a moment. "All right, but make it a day after tomorrow afternoon at 3. I have no appointment for that hour." Now that she had accomplished her purpose, Nancy gave her father a hug and fairly danced toward the door. "I knew you'd try to help them," she called back over her shoulder. "Now that you've promised, I'll scamper off and let you get your work done." Nancy's interest in the Crowley case had intensified since her chance meeting with the Horner girls, and it was with impatience that she awaited the conference. All the day of the appointment she kept watching the clock, wondering if Ellie and Grace would keep the engagement. She had sent them the invitation, and they had promised to come, but Nancy was a trifle uneasy, especially as the hour of 3 approached and the two girls had not arrived. "I don't see why they don't come," she fretted. The words were scarcely out of her mouth when the doorbell jangled. "That must be the girls now," she cried as she hurried to open the door. It was indeed Allie and Grace Horner. Nancy greeted them enthusiastically and, ushering them into the comfortable study, introduced her father. At first, the Horner sisters were rather ill at ease, but after a few minutes they relaxed and began to talk frankly. Tell me about Joshua Crowley, Carson Drew suggested. I understand that he was a rather peculiar man. Oh, he was, Allie began impulsively. I've seen him go about hunting for his spectacles when they were on his nose all the time. Did he ever hide things? Mr. Drew inquired. Did he? Allie laughed. He was always putting things in what he called a safe place. The place was usually so safe that he could never find it again. Did he ever say anything which would lead you to believe that he had hidden a will? Allie shook her head. Not that I can remember. Why, did he too? Grace broke in. One day, why, he did, too, Grace broke in. One day when he was at our house, he got to talking about the Thompsons and the way they were trying to get his money. I guess they'll be fooled all right when they find out I've made another will, he said, with that odd little chuckle of his. This time, I'm not going to trust it to any lawyer. I'll put it away in a place that I know will be safe. That's right, Ellie agreed. I had forgotten. Was Crowley living with the Thompsons at the time he told you this? Carson Drew asked quickly. Grace nodded. Do you think it's possible that he hid the will somewhere in the house? You mean at the Thompsons? Grace inquired. Of course I have no way of knowing, but it's my opinion that he did. Nancy and her father exchanged quick glances as the same thought occurred to them. Perhaps the Thompsons had discovered the will and already had destroyed it. Carson Drew asked a few more questions. The Horner girls were eager to help, but they were unable to furnish additional information which had a direct bearing on the missing will. After Nancy had served tea, they thanked Carson Drew for his interest in them and arose to depart. If I find that I am able to help you in any way, I will do so, Mr. Drew told the sisters as he escorted them to the door. And of course there will be no charge for my services. However, unless the will is found, there is really very little that can be done. After Allie and Grace had left, Nancy turned inquiring eyes upon her father. Charming girls, he commented, and undoubtedly deserving. Then you'll help them, Nancy demanded greedily. I'm afraid there is nothing I can do, Nancy, Mr. Drew returned regretfully. The will is probably lost forever. It wouldn't surprise me if it had been destroyed. You mean the Thompsons? Carson Drew nodded. The same thought came to me, Nancy declared. It would be just like them to destroy it if it fell into their hands. They have no scruples whatsoever. Of course, we have no proof the Thompsons did away with the will, Nancy. It would be very unwise to suggest such a thing to the Horner girls. They deserve a portion of the estate, but without the will, nothing can be done. If they took the matter to court, they wouldn't have a chance to win. I suppose you're right, Nancy admitted unwillingly. But while she dropped the subject for the time being, Nancy Drew did not forget the Horner sisters. She continued to hope that by some queer twist of fate they would come into their rightful inheritance. If the will has been destroyed, I don't see how anyone can help them, she told herself rather unhappily. But until I'm sure of it, I'm not going to give up. She squared her shoulders with determination. I'll find some way to discover what became of the will. And that was chapter 5. This is Raven Cross. Please like and subscribe, and have a great day.